Hey YouTube, just wanted to create a quick video showing people how to set up a FS.com S3900 switch up for the very first time. I'm just going to use OBS Studio here to get a quick capture, nothing fancy. Have a cheat sheet here going over what I'm about to tell you, just to keep my thoughts straight. So I'm a home user, not a network administrator. I don't do this, well, I do tech stuff for a living, but I don't set up switches for a living. So when I decided to buy this, or when I was researching to buy this switch, it was a little bit lacking in documentation, but there is some documentation available. So before I would say before I even show you some of the steps of setting up this switch, go and download all the documentation. And unfortunately, it is lacking. It doesn't give you a how to get started kind of document that you would expect from, say, maybe a D-Link or a TP-Link or any other brand almost, right? I think a lot of other brands give you a little bit better how-to getting started type documentation. This switch is from fs.com, probably very popular for its four SFP plus 10 gig ports, and that's why you're probably looking at it, right? So if you're a network admin, you may be buying this for an SMB, small business, medium business, you probably already know how to set up switches. So this is not for you. This video is for home users, right? So some of us just want to get a few 10 gig ports, or maybe create a backbone in our home network that is 10 gig ready. So in my case, I just wanted to start the process of upgrading my switches to 10 gig, and I think this is one of the cheapest options that you can find at a reasonable cost. So if you're on the fs.com site, networking, LAN access switches, and you'll see, this price fluctuates a bit. I've seen it higher, I've seen it lower. I bought it lower than this price. I think they must be looking at my cookies or my IP, because the day after I bought it, it went up a little bit in price. So who knows? I wouldn't put it past them. I know they can do amazing things with cookies, and just knowing who bought from where, and if they keep coming back from that site, I'm sure prices can be adjusted depending on the IP address looking at the product, right? So S3900-24T4S, fanless 24 port gig switch with four SFP plus ports. Now, one thing I want to go to is here. So first thing you should do is download the documents, right? Download everything that looks pertinent. This video is being made as of November 12th. I bought it about a few days ago. I'm not going to review it yet. It's I need to test all the features I'm going to be using, and I don't have other switches to interconnect it to it at 10 gig yet, so I can't test that yet. So I can't say whether it's a good switch, bad switch. I can only say it was frustrating at one point where I thought I was going to return the switch, and hopefully this video will take some of that frustration out of the home user. At least you'll need to be a tech savvy home user, and maybe get you more comfortable with buying this switch, which I think it's a great price. It's a reasonably built, no fans whatsoever in my model as of November 2019, no fans at all, and it is again at a reasonable price. So download all the documentation. I did find that you will have to use the web management manual, and you will have to use the CLI command line interface reference guide. You would have to use those two. There was no way around it. Okay, so I just want you to be aware of it. Download those two, but they don't tell you step by step how to set up the switch. All right, and that's where I'm going to come in here and show you in general. I'm not going to show you the exact commands. Um, I just wasn't prepared to create a video showing you step by step all the commands. But so once you can download those two command line reference manuals, uh, let me just show you the switch and describe it a little bit. So on this switch, you have a management port and a console port, both RJ45 type. So they do give you a console cable, but it is a 9-pin COM port type. I haven't seen a COM port on a PC or laptop for 10 years. And if you have a laptop or PC with a COM port, it's probably as slow as molasses. I wouldn't be surprised if Windows 98 is still running on it. It's just you're not going to have many PCs out there that can use that COM port that they give you for free, right? The COM port cable. So if you think you're going to do fancy things with this and you want to go in the command line, I would go out on Amazon and buy a USB to RJ45 COM port. Okay, I would. You're gonna need to because I can't imagine anyone having a 9-pin console cable, console port on home, right? So go to Amazon. I should have did this before I started the video, but you can find them for about 13 bucks, USB to RJ45 console cable. And they're mainly used for Cisco equipment. Look for the great reviews. Like this one has 282 reviews. I would trust this more than say a review of 33 reviews, right? Even though that's $10, this one's 13 bucks. I would go with this one instead. I have not purchased one. You don't need to purchase one if you get if you buy the Switch recently. Let me preface that. So in my research, I've gone to different forums, I've gone to Reddit, and I've seen many people talk about how they had to how to set up the Switch, say a year ago, or a few months ago, or 2 years ago when it first came out. You always needed a console cable, and you needed to do the following four things, which I'm going to list here. But you won't have to, and I'll talk about that. With the newest model, you won't have to do this. So what you want to do is you want to get your laptop or your PC, right? You want to remove it from your home network, and you want to give it an IP address on the 192.168.1.0 network. Okay, so that's the Class C/24. You can choose, 1.5 because the interface that they have pre-assigned is 1.1, right? So in here, sorry, wrong tab. When you go look at the quick start guide, it'll tell you if you're using the console cable what the baud rate and the bits is and all that stuff to be able to get on the console port. Right here it is, but it's in tiny print. I'm not going to try to blow that up. And however, they also tell you that the management interface has already been set up to go to 192.168.1.1 in tiny print over here, and you'll see this log in here. Okay, and the username password is admin, which is also here in this quick start guide. What they don't tell you is how to properly set up the switch after that, right? And of course, when I say properly set up from a home user perspective or from a network admin's perspective, you have two different opinions of how to properly set up the switch if it has a management port. And I'll give you my way. You don't have to follow what I do. You can do whatever you want to do. I'll tell you why I do it my way. Okay. All right. So now that you know that you can basically avoid buying the console cable because with the latest model, as of November 2019, you will the web service is already enabled for you. So here's what you would have had to done about 2 years ago, or maybe even a year ago. First of all, yes, you still need to get a laptop or PC, remove it from your home network, right, and then assign it a static address within this subnet. Okay, you would have still had to do something like that, but then you would then connect it with a console cable. Okay, and then you would have to go through the documentation on how to enable the web service. Okay, once the web service is enabled, you can then create an IP on the VLAN 1, and then you would be able to use the management port to connect to the web console. I put in SSH here because most people don't really use the console except for in emergencies or when you first initially set it up. Everything else is going to be done through putty. So I would enable SSH. I would figure out how to do that, and you can probably figure that out by reading the command line reference manual because a lot of the features are in the command line and not necessarily exposed on the in the web GUI. So these are the four things you would have had to do, or would have had to do: console cable, enable the web service, maybe enable SSH, and then create an IP interface on VLAN 1. Now, why VLAN 1? VLAN 1 is there by default. It is the default VLAN of the switch. So if you were to just buy the switch, plug it in, and start plugging in things in, you would probably see all the devices will see each other, but it will be on VLAN 1, right? But this is why you would do it. So what happens is that when you create an IP interface on VLAN 1, let me get to the picture of the switch. It will assign that IP interface on these 24 ports. So any one of these, if it is on VLAN 1, you would be able to find that web interface. Now let's talk about how it's set up as of November 2019 when they ship it to you. When you get this switch, 192.168.1.1 is already been set up for you, but it is set up for you on the management interface, this port right here. This little port here is the management interface, and that's going to have the 192.168.1.1, and then you will get your PC or laptop, set it up to 192.168.1.5/24, right? That's 255.255.255.0, and you will connect it here with your LAN cable, and then you will be able to get to 192.168.1.1. Okay, but you cannot get to that on these ports. They have something called a craft interface. And a craft interface is there. I don't know why they called it craft. Maybe that's something in network lingo that everyone knows about if you're a network administrator. But for me, I have no idea what a craft interface is. But it's in the documentation. If you dig hard enough, you'll find that it'll tell you that there is a craft interface that is hosting the 192.168.1.1 address. It's just not very intuitive. You have to figure this out. You're doing a lot of investigation. So let me just log on. Now the default password is admin. I've changed my password, so give me a second. Okay, and so to see your address, you have to do commands similar to, I guess, Cisco IOS or commands you find on other network devices. I have done something like this before on edge routers. Let's see here. So you want us to show IP interface, and brief is just to show everything. So I've already created a bunch of VLANs, so I'm going to ignore all that. I just want to show you the bottom. In the beginning, you'll see nothing except for maybe VLAN 1, and then you'll see this craft interface. Right? Now, it's going to say 192.168.1.1, and that's going to be specifically for this port here. Okay, for this port, the management port. So what you want to do is you're going to need to, in the command line, even on the new switch, you're going to need to go and come in the command line here and create, there is in the documentation, it'll show you how to create an IP interface. I think you have to go configure terminal, and in here you will be able to like IP add or something like that. I don't want to do that here right now, but in the documentation, it'll tell you how to add an IP to VLAN 1. Now, you could create a VLAN and then create an interface on that VLAN if you wanted to. I just figured I would just do what my other switches are doing right now, which is using VLAN 1 as the management interface. But I'll put all of my data, my PCs, my IoT devices on other VLANs. So the VLAN 1 is only being used to manage the IP interface of this switch, which is, I don't even know how to show you that. Whoops, I have to get out of config mode. My phone is blowing up. Okay, so this is not it. Oh well. I think I've given you enough. You'll have to go look at the documentation for the right commands. But this is the gist of it, right? So you're going to need to create these first three items are really not needed anymore because they have the IP on the management port. So you connect to the management port, and then you're going to need to create an IP interface on VLAN 1. In my case, let me see if I don't like doing that in the middle of the video, but it's supposed to be a short video. So if you want to see what the commands are, you do a show and then question mark, and you can find out what the commands are. Yeah, again, it's just going to be, it's too much to do right now on the fly. I'm not a network admin, so I don't remember. But basically, you go to the documentation, the CLI documentation, create the IP. And then after you have the IP, you can unplug. Um, Where's the picture? You can unplug the management port and see if this will respond. Now remember, this is like any other computer. You cannot have an IP on the same subnet on two ports of the same device, right? It's like you can't take a network card, put another network card in there, and give it two addresses within the 192.168.1.1 or 1.0 subnet. It won't know where to respond, right? So you're going to need to give it a different subnet address. So in my case, as you saw from my example from the thing, my craft address is on the 10.90 address. I don't know if I can still find it here. Yeah. So this is my management port. I actually changed the IP of my management port to a non-routable address, and I talk about that here. So what you want to do is you want to create a management interface and default gateway for access over the LAN ports. That's this step right here is really what it is. Right? It's really the same thing. I don't know why I put it as a separate line. So when you do that, you would then be able to manage your switch over the 24 ports. In my case, I bought the 24 port unit, right? So you'll be able to manage it from these 24 ports. But sorry, I gotta go back to here. But what happens is that the other interface, the craft interface, right, the management port is still active. So you can't have two IPs on the same subnet. So what I did was I changed my craft address to 10.1090.1. And then I labeled the switch to say that that's what the port has on its address for the management port. And basically, that's your backdoor if something goes wrong, right? In case of emergencies, plug in a laptop to that port and put it on your laptop onto this subnet space, right? 10.1090.5 or something like that, and then you'll be able to get to the management port and then correct any problems you might have created on the other management interface. Maybe you did something wrong and now it's hung, or maybe you did something wrong and now it's not responsive, right? Because maybe you gave it a wrong subnet mask on the management port. Management address. Maybe you gave it the wrong gateway. Now it doesn't know how to get back to you. So you can go locally to the management port, plug in, and then you'll know that this is your address. Now I'm just using this as an example. You can do anything you want, but it should be non-routable, meaning it's not going to be a internet address. It's going to be a private address, right? 10.10 network is a private net. You can certainly use 192.168, but I'm already using that numbering scheme in my home network. I'm using this in my home network already. So I wanted something that was not used in my home network, and I'm not using the 10.10 for really anything. So this is a perfect address. I'm not routing to it. None of my routers have this address in their routing tables. So this address is safe for me to just put it on that management port, and I won't worry about it trying to route there. Right now, if you were to say to leave the management port on 192.168.1.1, but you would give maybe your routable on the you create a management interface on the 10.10.10 network, you won't be able to route, and then your home network maybe is on the 192.168.1.1, and it won't be able to route out of the switch. Just be aware, all right? If you have a port, an interface on your switch that is on your home network somewhere, you're going to have a routing issue. If a packet goes into that switch, it's going to see that it has an interface on that home network that you're already using, and it's not going to be able to route back out to the right through the right port for you. So just be aware of that. Just make it simple, make your life. So this is why I was pulling my hair over, and I wanted to return the switch because I didn't think that the management port was actually part of the operating system for some reason. I don't know why. That was just a crazy thought in my. And after good night's sleep, woke up. I said, oh wait a minute. This thing is an OS. So you can't have two IPs in the same subnet, or you can't have a subnet on the interface that you're not using because it's going to try to route there, right? And of course, that was true because by default, it's 192.168.1.1, and I didn't want to use that, but that's what my home network is, and so hence I couldn't route through the switch. The packets going in the switch didn't know which interface to come back out of, right? Because they had an interface on 192.168.1.1, 1.0. So just be aware of that. Give that craft interface, right, specifically the craft interface, an address that you're not using that's not routable in your network. So that way you won't have to worry about using something that needs to go somewhere. Okay, and really that's the only piece of information that I had missing, right? So you don't need the console cable. All you have to do is set up your laptop, use a regular LAN cable, set your laptop, you know, maybe that 5.24. You don't have to do any of this stuff here, right? In fact, you know what? I'm just going to remove it. And all you need to do really is to create an IP interface on VLAN 1. Once you do that, give it a default gateway, which is part of the same command actually. And you'll be able to route in and out of that switch with that address. Once you do that, you can set the NTP, right? Maybe like NTP pool.ntp.org or something like that. And then once it's on the internet, you get to the right time, you can then go and update the firmware. As of today, November 12, 2019, I think the latest firmware is 1.6.9 revision 2, right, which came out about a month ago or something like that. We can find it here. Right here, revision 2. So it came out in September. So download this and you'll be able to use the web GUI to, and then the instructions. They have instructions somewhere around here. One of these are instructions on how to upgrade the firmware. And that's it. And you'll be able to be up and running and without frustration like I had, and you won't be pulling out your hair and thinking about returning the switch. So once you do that, update the firmware, and then change. You don't need to do this because I think that's number 4, right? So here's your 3 basic steps, right? Set it up on the laptop to go on that network, plug it into the management port, create an interface, go look on the command line documentation on how to create an interface on VLAN 1, add a default gate while you're at it, set NTP, update the firmware, and then remember to change the craft address to something non-routable, and you'll be good to go. All right, I'm sorry about that. This is a very long-winded video. Hope this helps somebody. And these switches seem okay. I don't know how long they'll last. They seem well made. They have no fan. If you're using RJ45 SFP plus adapters, just beware, they get very hot. They get very hot. Hopefully I'll be testing those in a few weeks. Good luck.